should be more worried about Brisbane's performance this round rather than Melbourne's performance this round.
Not, I'm I don't think this is an overreaction purely because just look at who they played. I mean,
Exactly. That's what I
Fremantle
was
is a
looking at.
legit. Well, here's the thing though. You can kind of counteract a little bit. Is Fremantle for the previous 2 weeks had been putrid, but
Mhm.
I agree. Many people kept forgetting that the previous 2 games were in wet weather footy, we were in atrocious footy,
Mhm.
and I don't know if Fremantle just never really got used to playing in that weather conditions, but a dry game, dry footy. They played fantastic against the Melbourne Demons, where Brisbane kind of the Giants jumped all over them to start this game. Like legitimately, I was looking
They
going,
were
oh my
scoring at
gosh,
will, and they were. I don't think the ball really was ever in the midfield. Like for that first quarter, it seemed like it always felt like you got the bounce. It was in the
it
50
went
for the
from one
Giants.
end to the other a
Right.
lot in that first
Right.
quarter. I remember watching. I
It
almost
was
text, like
insane.
legitimately, almost texted you going, Ross, right now your call for GWS over Brisbane looking kind of good. And then about halfway through the second quarter, went, well, here comes Brisbane,
Yeah.
and then they stalled a little bit, and GW and Brisbane just kind of that was one of those they just kind of slowly chipped away and slowly got it to where they kind of took over in the second
Yeah.
half. But
They
like
pace. They got onto their pace, and then that kind of.
GWS just had such a quick first quarter, and I don't know if they just couldn't sustain it
It's
or
that kind
Brisbane
of court
or
could beat the D's, but also you have to do that
well,
for more than just 20 minutes. Is
yeah,
the
well, and
issue?
a little bit. I think Brisbane kind of they came out flat,
Mm-hmm.
and GWS was all over him. And once GWS kind of got their, and once Brisbane kind of got their groove going, then you kind of saw the tides change because you can only hold back a tidal wave so far before it finally
Yeah.
overtakes you. So that's
If
kind
if
of
you
what
don't score
happened there.
100 points against Brisbane, you're probably you're. I think you have a 10% chance of winning that game.
You got to hope that they can't kick straight. Like legitimately, that's
But the only
that's your
problem is
only
they
way of
were
winning that
kicking.
one.
They kicked very well in this game too.
And that helps them too. So,
Yeah.
but I'm if you look at it, I don't think this is an overreaction because I think Fremantle is better than everybody kind of focused on those 2 games.
Hmm.
They didn't see the kind of
Let's just
entirety
ignore
of
the whole
this.
beginning of the season and look at those two last
Well, I
games.
don't think they were ignoring it. I think they were just going on. They were going off of the previous 2 games, like this is their form.
Hmm.
And I looked at it as 2 wet weather games, 2 games that were in sloppy footy, and
Hmm.
they didn't handle it well.
See.
When they got a dry footy game,
Hmm.
look at how much different. And then they kind of I think they did very good. Longmuir did a really good job in this one in that he kind of took the mosquito fleet. He outsped that back line of
Yeah.
Melbourne. They just could not handle that speed and pressure in this game. That's not something they're used to. I mean, they face Richmond, but Richmond again, I don't think they're the mosquito fleet that they used to be. So this is almost a little bit of a revamped type of Richmond style game
Hmm.
against Melbourne in this one. And it really affected Melbourne, especially losing May early because they didn't have a guy they could throw back that could structure them the way they did. And it really kind of showed.
Hmm.
So
Kind
I
of to
look at it
your
like this.
point too is like that Fremantle team was not the last couple rounds was not the Frio team that they actually are. I don't think that the D's team we saw in round 11 is the D's team that they actually are, and there's not a thing to it. That wasn't the D's. I'm just going. I could just say it outright. The only problem is I cannot say that in confidence when it comes to Brisbane. I cannot say, oh, that Brisbane team over the course of all 80 minutes of that game. I'm not going to say that's not Brisbane because that is kind of Brisbane of what we've seen so far this year. If they can't play defense, or sorry, if they can't just outpace someone, and just keep on outscoring them, they're not going to win games because they're not a defensive team. They have, I would probably argue, one of the worst defenses in the league, especially out of finals teams, current finals teams. So that's a big issue when you're getting outpaced for a good chunk of the game against a bottom five team. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, it was not a good start. And that it just shows you that I think there's more parity in the league than I think everybody kind of focuses on, well, the bottom has so many points. Well, here's the thing. Hawthorn played really, really well at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Essendon has their moments, but if you really look at it, if you take Essendon, West Coast, and North off, The other teams that are down there at the bottom, they're still competitive. They're still going to give you a test. Hawthorne's going to test you. GWS is going to test you.
Mm-hmm.
Adelaide is going to test you. Those three other teams in the bottom six, they're no step over. If they get you on the right day, you're in trouble. So
Mm-hmm.
I hate pointing to that bottom six and going, well, this is the reason why the finals it's not going to be very entertaining because we know. Well, no, we don't, because Adelaide, GWS, and Hawthorn, don't sleep on them.
Mm-hmm.
If you come down to these last eight
Thank you.
rounds after we get through the buys, and we get another 9 rounds of footy, keep an eye out on Hawthorn, GWS, and Adelaide. Those three teams could potentially make or break a finals berth just by one game. Because if you drop a game to one of those teams, especially with several of these teams playing each other over the last 8 rounds of the season, it's going to get entertaining. This ladder, as much as it looks like it's pretty settled, except for maybe 10th and 11th and 12th, potentially somebody jumping in, I think there's still some jumping around.
Mm-hmm.
It would not shock me if a couple of teams, potentially two, if not three teams, are really sweating that last round of the year. Carlton is one. I think the Western Bulldogs and Richmond, who are all in that little area, are all kind of in this little interesting time period. Sydney, even as well. I'll say it. Sydney is vulnerable because of the fact that they've lost so many games going into it. And honestly, even I'll raise my hand. I'm not super confident in this game against Melbourne. Yes, Melbourne is without May, but it's not a game that you can sit here and go, I'm super confident Sydney's going to win. If I said that, I'd be lying to you.
Better hope
If
Petrarca
I'm
gets
honest
another
with
flu.
myself.
Oh man, and I like it because I know for damn sure that GWS will not be competing for a final spot. But if they could kick someone out of the finals, like in the last couple of games, maybe even the Western Bulldogs, to help that rivalry keep going, oh, that would make me smile and definitely laugh a little bit.